So this is the VFE Focus pedal that I've borrowed off my friend Nolly, who is the bass player in Periphery, but he's also a really good guitarist, and the main application of this would be for guitars for like tightening up your rhythm tone. If you're kind of new to using like a tube screamer or a boost, check out the video I did on that first. But the way I've been using this is kind of so subtle that you really need to like plug in some decent headphones or have some decent studio monitors to really hear what the pedal's doing. But it's definitely doing enough to make it worthwhile. Like, to me, it's the best boost pedal that I've tried, because with the tube screamers or the Maxons, the amount of low end that you're kind of cutting when the pedal's activated is already kind of preset. And with us, because we don't down tune playing standard, I don't like to lose too much low end. It's definitely useful just to trim a little bit off, just to tighten up and even out some of the picking and the swells. But just having the control of that is really useful. And there's no clipping stage on this, so there's no gain control. You've just got a level. But for me, in the way most people would use these pedals in a metal context, that's kind of just what you want. So it's not the same as someone who's using like a tube screamer, you know, as an overdrive pedal on a clean channel for some blues and stuff. This is, I guess the main idea for this is using it on a heavy distorted tone and just kind of tightening up and just getting a bit more control over it. So really being able to control like the guitar or the pickups or the amp, and kind of suit it to the tone you're going for. Basically with this, you've got way more scope on tightening up the low end, and you can really kind of cater it towards what guitar or what pickups or what amp you're using. The slope controls that you can kind of switch between is kind of like, I'll throw out like a picture of an EQ kind of graph to show you. So you can have either like a more like curved, rounded off, you know, high and low pass, or a more of a kind of quick curve, I guess, or sharp curve. And basically by changing the tight and smooth controls, say that's low end and that's high end, you can kind of move them in and kind of choose like how much you want to cut of the highs and lows. So there's way more scope on this for shaping the tone and getting really just paying a lot of attention to detail. And like I say, the way I've been using it is so subtle, but it definitely makes, like, to me, a world of difference. It kind of does the stuff that you'd be subtly trying to EQ on the recorded tone at the end, like maybe trying to tighten up some of the line but without losing too much of it, or some of the shrill high stuff. So there's way more scope on this for me, and like I way prefer using this to like a tube screamer or a Maxon. So I'll do some demos, and like I say, it's really subtle. At least I can show you way more extreme examples than the way I've been using it. But plug in some decent headphones, or you know, play it through some decent speakers to really hear what the pedal's doing. Right, so this is how it sounds with the pedal off. I'm using my JMP. I've got it set to, well, as loose as I can get it sounding. There's a few controls on the amp that kind of tighten it up. And it's still quite a tight tone. There's not much gain on it, so this is just how it sounds at the moment. And this is with the pedal engaged. So it's a very subtle change, but it really does tighten up some of the low end. So basically, this control here, the more you go this way, the more low end you're cutting. So this is with it in its most extreme kind of cut. That's without the pedal engaged. This is with it on. I'll turn that wet mix up. And this is with the slope even more accentuated. Most people, and Nolly himself, would say that that's the ideal position to have both of these controls in. Same for the high end, and I would never go cutting that much low end from the guitar tone. But if you down tune loads, cutting a bit more low end kind of works if you like as low as B or lower. So this is kind of the settings that I like using in. It's really not cutting off too much of the low end, but just enough to make a difference, just to tighten it a bit. And same with the high end, and just not much of a boost in the signal. And if I do this, we're not cutting any low end, and if I do this, this is with all the high end coming through. Here you're starting to cut off high end, and this is with all the high end possible cut, well, at least within this pedal. And essentially when you're boosting the volume, like this is just boosting, you're essentially boosting low end. I say boosting low end, low mids, mids as well. But essentially, even though you're cutting high end when you're doing that, and that's not boosting any low end, that's just letting all the low end through. This is just cutting low end. This is essentially cuts high end as well, but because I've cut so much high end and I'm boosting the signal, more of the low end's going through than would be because we're boosting the signal there. So it sounds way more kind of thick and almost kind of like a fuzz tone. Which is actually something I like a lot. I really like kind of, you know, stonery and doomy tones. But yeah, commonly not many people are going to be using it in that way. So I'll go back to just playing with some different settings. I can show you more of the difference in the slope on the high end there. Right, so if I set it up kind of how I like it to sound, laying a bit more low end through than you would get with like a Tube Screamer or a Maxon, and then I'll kind of compare the two. Okay, so I'm going to kind of take some of the lows out and quite a bit of the high end out, because it kind of takes some of the shrill attack off certain strings and certain notes. And by doing this, by cutting some low end, cutting some highs, you're essentially just boosting the mids, and that's kind of what you want for, or at least what I like for lead tones, for the mid range to kind of stick out a bit more in the mix.